So far, Jones himself has not agreed to do an interview with us.
Yeah, that's right. We want to talk more about this race and how it could impact others on the ballot. Joining us now is Dr. Stephen Farnsworth. He's a political analyst at University of Mary Washington. Thank you for joining us. Let's start right off. How significant is this year's Attorney General race for Virginia in terms of politics?
Well, it's absolutely the center of the conversation for these last 2 weeks. We're really looking at a horrific statement by the Democratic candidate for the Attorney General's office, and that has been a narrative that has really continued, in part through Republican efforts to make it so, a key question going forward. I do think, though, that the very aggressive efforts on the part of the rest of the Democratic ticket and other Democratic candidates to distance themselves from Jones does mean that this is largely going to be contained to the Jones campaign itself.
Dr. Farnsworth, what's at stake here? How the outcome might shape the political landscape in the future? Just give us a little more sense of what's at stake.
Well, the Attorney General's race is very much the key component of the cultural dynamics that are playing out between left and right in Virginia. The Attorney General has a key role to play in terms of deciding what kind of litigation to engage in. Oftentimes, the Attorney Generals, if they're of the opposing party to the party controlling the White House, actually sue the federal government more frequently. And so there are a lot of those kinds of issues. Central, of course, to these issues involve the key battleground questions of gay marriage, of abortion, of sexual and racial identities, and whether or not there is equality or inequity. Those kinds of questions, they have very polarized answers depending on whether the individual is a Republican or a Democrat, and those are often the key issues that attorney generals focus on once they're in office. It's a key stepping stone, of course, to being a candidate for governor 4 years later.
Farnsworth, are you surprised that Jay Jones hasn't stepped aside given the scandal that he's dealing with?
Well, this is horrible, no doubt about it, and we'll leave Jay Jones to make comments that he wants to make about this situation. I think that there will be a significant number of voters who are Democrats who are going to be hesitant to sign up for his campaign. I can imagine some Democrats leaving that third line ballot blank on the ballot. So there are, I think, significant challenges here. But it's also important to recognize that in many ways the train not only has left the station with respect to this election, but it's well down the tracks. There has been early voting going on for nearly a month now. Many votes were cast before we even heard of these tech scandals. And so the Democratic Party didn't really have a lot of good options here in terms of replacing a candidate this late in the process. But the voters will have a say, those who haven't voted yet, on how they consider this disqualifying or not.
That's right. Voters will have a say come Tuesday, November 4th. Dr. Farnsworth, you mentioned some of the issues that are top of mind for voters. We know that education, the economy, the federal layoffs, those are all very important issues on the minds of voters. What other hot button issues are on the minds?
Well, I really do think that the economy is crowding out everything else. You look at the economic anxiety that people face in this country, made doubly intense, of course, in Northern Virginia and in other parts of the state with high levels of federal employment. You look about the shutdowns, you look at the issues of people who have lost their jobs through the various cutbacks of the Trump administration during the first year in office. And those kinds of things create a lot of economic pain, a lot of economic anxiety, and it spreads far beyond the individual people who might be losing their jobs or worried they might lose their jobs. You think about people who are selling real estate or cars or appliances. I mean, all the consumers who are thinking about buying these things, if they're worried about the economic future, they're not going to make those kinds of big purchases. And that's a big, big problem. I think that when you look at the larger dynamics of the issues that are really motivating people, it's very much this question of economic dynamics. Sure, there are some people who say education is a top priority. Some people who say the question of trans rights is a top priority. But these are much, much smaller issues than the key question of that economic anxiety. It was a key issue last year. It looks to be a key issue this year as well.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Farnsworth, before you leave, so both candidates for the Attorney General position will face off Thursday in their only debate before the election. What do you think we'll see?
Well, I think one of the things to recognize is that we live in very contentious times, and if you think back to that governor's debate last week, I'm not sure that the lieutenant governor helped herself by being as combative as she was. I think that Miyares will have to consider whether or not he wants to go down that same road. I think that that's kind of off-putting to some voters to see just a person who can't even let the other side be heard. I think that's a particularly dangerous strategy for Miyares to engage in. That being said, the topic is going to be those J. Jones texts that we've been talking about during our time here tonight, and as Virginia has been talking about them for 2 years. I think the key question for Jones is how he can deal with this in a head-to-head conversation with Miyares. I think that one of the things you might see is sort of like the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky story. You start with an apology, and then you go after the critics. I'm not sure that it is going to be sufficient for Jay Jones. This is a serious, serious threat to him. But remember, Bill Clinton did survive what some people at the time thought was a career-ending scandal by turning the tables on his accusers once he'd made his apologies.
Yeah, as we're being bombarded with ads, we want to thank you for providing some context to, all that we're seeing play out. Thank you so much, Dr. Farnsworth.